talk less and hear more. And I've come to sit down, and even just in this past week, I've heard different conversations. And just last night, we have a friend visiting us. It's actually my wife's friend. But they were members of the health center that we had in Amanzimtoti, and that's how they made their friendship. And about 4 years ago, her husband passed away from cancer. All on our own, and all of a sudden, you know, one's life is upside down. Her one child is in New Zealand, and the other one is in the UK. And she spends some time with the one in New Zealand and the other one in the UK. And obviously when she goes to the one family in the UK, they got children, and she becomes the cook, the child look after and everything, and she's kept busy, but her life's not the same. She's happy to do that, but her life's not the same. She goes to New Zealand, the same thing, with her son there, spends time with him, go for walks, do things, but it's not the same. But anyway, we were discussing, and last night she said, "No." I said, "What do you do?" She was busy looking. You know, I find a lot of people are doing that. They're looking at their cell phones. Have you found yourself, you know, sitting and you've got people around you, but you're checking your cell phone? And so I was intrigued, and I'd almost like to ask the question that Jesus asks: what are you looking at? What are you know? Lately I find TikTok, or that kind of stuff, keeps people busy. I've heard that some people see something on TikTok, and 3 hours later they realize they're still looking at TikTok. That's a TikTok grab, all these short reels or whatever. And so I asked her, "What are you looking at?" You know, because I found her sitting, and I'm there, but she's kind of rude, you know. So I said, "What are you looking at?" She says, "I like to keep up with what's the news is in the world." She says, "What's going on in Gaza?" "Yeah, and what's going on with Donald Trump?" "Yes, and Ukraine." What are you discussing together as you walk along? What are you talking about? What are you looking at in your social media? What do you use Google for? Because Google will get you what you're looking for. It's amazing. You ask for it. "Please help me to find a door. I need a door." Next minute you're looking at the social media, not looking for a door, but they advertise doors. No, they're good at that. That's what Google is all about. It's trying to find out what you want, and it'll give it to you even if you don't want it. But what are you Googling? Another way I'd like to ask you, when you read the Bible, what are you Googling for? What are you looking for? If you sit down with people, what are you talking about when it comes to the Bible? What are you talking about? And I find the conversation quite interesting amongst prophetic students, of which the Seventh-day Adventist Church claims to be. We love to talk. It has to put food on the table. And I find that when I listen to this question, what are you discussing together? as you walk along? What are you talking about? I've entitled my presentation today that prophecy can be dangerous. I remember in 1844, prior to 1844, people put their minds to studying God's word, trying to understand what was going to happen in Daniel, 8 verse what? Oh goodness, don't you know what verse? Daniel 8 verse? Where do we get the 1844 from? Unto 2,300 evenings and mornings, and then the sanctuary will be clear. Dear friends, aren't you students of the word? Don't you know that this church came into existence from a knowledge of Daniel 8 verse 14? Listen to me. We didn't come into existence because we worried about people. We came into existence because we knew what Daniel 8 verse 14 says. And what Daniel 8 verse 14 says, that's what they concluded. Listen to me. The interpretation was that Jesus was coming, and everybody was excited, and everybody who heard the message, who received the message, and it came from all walks of life. And I've got bad news for you. There weren't Seventh-day Adventists then. You weren't even there. But Methodists, Presbyterians, Baptists, they were all talking about the second coming. And they got the world in some way. Somehow the news was so powerful that the world, almost like the COVID thing that we had, came to a standstill. Farmers stopped farming. People stopped and they said, why should we carry on? Jesus is coming. They even gave the day. Life came to a sudden halt. And then something hit me. According to Matthew 24. And Christ only, we find it recorded in 3 places. Matthew 24, Luke 21, and Mark 13. That's the only time that Christ ever prophetically spoke. But his warning was, as it was in the days of Noah. People will what? Be eating and drinking and doing what they do right up until Jesus comes. And yet somehow the message of 1844, which was so powerful, preparing a people for the second coming, which we are supposed to be doing, but we want people to stop their lives and all of a sudden become obsessed with what we tell them. But you know what? Life carries on. People would meet one another in the streets. Their first question would be, do you know that Jesus is coming? No, I didn't know that. Well, I'm going to tell you, he's coming, and at the time period is, we've got the date set all up. It's going to be on this day. You need to be ready. You want to be ready? Yes, okay, give your heart to Jesus. And they gave their hearts to Jesus, and they did. And we had people doing that, and they would huddle together all over, and we want to do that now. I see that. We want to go to people, we want to tell them about what we know, and then we say, let's have a prayer. And what we forget is that life carries on. You'll see why I'm emphasizing this. The day came that they had predicted. Nothing happened. And all of a sudden people had to go back to their lives that they dropped everything on and try to get it going again. They had to pick up the pieces. And it was called a time of great discipline. To such an extent that some of those who had dropped everything turned from Christ. never to go back. Even though there was this renewal to try and find out what went wrong, their prophetic word had destroyed something. And it took the church years to recover from that. And I find we're still doing the same thing. I've been an Adventist minister now for 50 years. Or been from baptism, 50 years. I've heard so many times when the Pope comes into seating that this is the Pope. There was a time they were even counting them off. We're still doing it. But this one's different. I mean, he's got a name called Lion. And his name actually is similar to the very first one, who was also called Lion. You know, we are looking for things. But you know what? People are still hurting. Even though you tell them all of that. But you expect them to kind of somehow drop everything that's hurting them. And say, don't worry, you're going to be all right. And then things don't work out the way you told them. And it's not all right, then you expect them to go and pick up the pieces themselves. I wish we would stop being people of prophecy, but rather be people more of heart. Really caring. I mean, I'm bumping into so many people out there that I haven't got time to talk about prophecy. I'm talking to them about how can we get Jesus to help you with your child that's got a problem. This lady was telling me how that the last 4 months of her husband's life, she had to look after him. Now that he's gone, she's trying to pick up the pieces. Where do I fit in? If she meets with friends of hers, they're still married, she's not. Immediately she becomes a threat to her friend. She can't even continue with that friendship properly because what are you doing here now? It's a fact, dear friends, I'm telling you. I'm not sucking it out of my thumb. This is conversations I hear. They're trying to find, where do we fit in now? She indicates I was married for 41 years. Poop. I will never meet another man like it. I said, guarantee you, never. But it doesn't mean there won't be another man. You know, the interesting thing, Jesus says there will be eating and drinking. That's what we all do. Marrying and giving marriage. That's what we all do. You know, some of us, when our children were born, we never imagined, never did I imagine that my son will actually one day fall in love, break his heart, fall in love, break his heart, fall in love, break his heart. I found out that he was on planet Earth. And then all of a sudden he met one, and they actually got it. And then it wasn't like riding off into the sunset. No, there are challenges. I watched as he had to navigate his own challenges. He also was a provider, is a provider. But there's a little bit of that selfish, why must I worry, you know? It's the strangest thing. But also life was what I spoke to him more about than the Pope. And he's got a little girl now. Time flies. She's already nearly 3. I imagine next minute he's going to watch her walk down the aisle and get married. Because that's what the Bible says. Eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, right up until when Jesus comes. That's going to happen, dear friends, all the time. But there is a little snippet in Matthew 24 that I want to remind you of. And that is this. 2 were in the field working the ground. One was ready and the other one wasn't. 2 were at the spinning, weaving. One was ready, the other one was not. I'm asking you this question. Which one of the 2 are you? Now, being ready isn't about knowing prophecy. Prophecy does not save you. Jesus does. And if there was ever a time we need to come back to our first love, the 3-angel message starts off with this word: the everlasting gospel is to be preached until Jesus comes. And Paul made it very clear what that gospel is. He said, I want to know no other gospel save the gospel of Jesus Christ and Him crucified. I have found in my simple experience as a minister of the gospel, when Jesus walked throughout the land, He spoke very little about prophecy. But He really helped a lot of people to know Him. I'm asking you to recognize that the gift of prophecy is really wonderful, but the gift of Christ is greater. I'm a student of prophecy. I love prophecy. I can tell you a whole lot of things that's really happening now, and it's dynamic. But the simplicity of the gospel is this: that people will be eating and drinking, marrying and giving marriage. They'll actually be starting businesses. Their businesses will be struggling. Some will be successful, some will fail. Some people will get married, they're going to fail, they're going to try again, they're going to fail, they're going to try again, they're going to keep trying. That's going to happen. But nobody ever talks to them about that. I wonder if it's because we haven't got the answers. We're good at prophecy, but man, we can't help marriages. We're good at prophecy, but we can't help people who've got children that they're struggling with. We're good at prophecy, but we don't know how to help a person when they navigate and trying to make ends meet, because we're even struggling to make our own ends meet. I was so interested in the prayer. Lord, thank you that you can take a little and make it do a lot. We can't. Did you know that you can give me a little? I can't do a lot with it. And yet I'm required to do a lot with a little. Can any of you tell me how to do that? I can tell you how to do that. Anything you give to Jesus becomes a lot. He takes 5 loaves and 2 fishes and He feeds a lot. What are you discussing together as you walk along?